Welcome to Girl Talk. My name is Caroline Gerges, and I have three wonderful ladies here with me who will introduce themselves. Go ahead, Farida.
Hi, I'm Farida. I go to Trinity Christian School and I attend FCC.
Hi, I'm Zoe Powers. I go to Trinity Christian School and I also attend FCC.
Hi, I'm Christy Simon. I go to Trinity Christian School and I attend St. Mark's Coptic Orthodox Church.
So as you just heard, all three girls attend Trinity Christian School, and they've been there for most of their academic years, and now they are seniors and they're getting ready to apply to colleges. So we're going to speak today a little bit about what that looks like, transitioning from a Christian school into a university or a college that may or may not be Christian. So my first question is, are any of you applying to Christian schools, Christian colleges?
So I'm applying to Liberty University. I'm going to keep it as one of my safety schools, but generally speaking, it's not my top school, so I think I should clarify that.
I am actually applying to no Christian colleges or universities. Most of my schools are actually really secular, which is going to pose an interesting challenge.
Yeah, I'm also not applying to any Christian colleges. Most of them are like pretty big public schools, so.
So if you're not applying to any of the Christian colleges other than, I guess, Liberty, but that's not your top choice, what steps are you taking to prepare yourself for college? Because college is different no matter what. Whether you're in a Christian high school or not, college is different. What are you doing to prepare yourself for that environment?
So I think for me, seeing my sister go through that process, she goes to University of Virginia, and so having that community, Chi Alpha, which is just a Christian-based community. So I think seeing her go through that and finding a youth group, a church, and her, I heard it's a really, really, strong Christian community at UVA too, so that's really, I guess, encouraging to hear. And so I know, there's so many clubs at every college and every university, and I know that I'm going to find Christians, and so, for me, it's just getting myself involved, the moment I get on campus, and just keeping that, and finding a church immediately, or even before I actually go there, knowing the church is around, just to, keep my faith strong.
Okay, so you want to dive into a Christian community even within a secular college.
Yeah.
You don't want to test the waters, you're not tempted to, you already know that your mind is set on that.
Yes.
Well, that's very good. What about you, Christy?
Yeah, so I also agree with Farida. I'm planning to immediately join some kind of Christian group, whether it's things like InterVarsity or Chi Alpha. Those are all groups where Christians of any denomination just come together and they do activities. And just, I think it's a way to stay connected, because in college there's obviously going to be a lot of distractions that will push you away from the Word of God. And after going to a Christian school, not being able to take Christian study classes or things like that, I think it's important to find a way to stay connected with your faith. So.
And Zoe?
So I plan on going, the two schools that I'm applying to are big research universities, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to find communities within the schools that are explicitly Christian or have Christian faith. So what I plan on doing is I've been researching the churches around and trying to find youth groups in those areas, so I'm still getting that component of Christ in my week, regardless of where I choose to go to school.
Okay. So Farida and Christy, both of you have said that you have sisters who already have gone to college before you. And I don't want to discuss their lives and what they're doing and what they're up to, because that's their business. And I'm sure they must have had the same attitude as you, probably leaving a Christian school. They wanted to go ahead and find a Christian organization and surround themselves with people that can uphold them to the truth and to the gospel. Without going into any details, have your sisters been able to do that, or was that really hard at UVA to do that? Because there's also the stress of the academics at UVA, and there's that competitive, the competitive nature between the two, between your friends. So have they struggled at all? Have they spoken to you about struggles that they've had, challenges that they faced?
I mean, Farah is actually taking theology and philosophy classes, and she brought with her a lot of a lot of theological books, so she like has St. Augustine's Confessions with her, and other books of that sort. And so I think for her, like, she had a fine transition. Like, she went to a retreat with the girls, and so she's very, very immersed in that Christian community. Like, her youth group leader like drives her to the meetings, and she wants to go into a Chi Alpha house next year. So like, I think she's been doing really, really good with that.
Okay,
So
good.
yeah.
I'd say for Katrina, it was definitely completely different going from all your friends being Christian to the chances of meeting Christian friends were much slimmer at University of Virginia. But she definitely, I think, she had people who also go to University of Virginia who had been to Trinity, and they were involved in Christian organizations. And so she reached out to them and asked them what they were doing, and they would invite her to things. And so she's definitely been able to be more involved now.
Zoe, I know you're an only child, so you haven't experienced having siblings go to college before you, but do you have friends who have gone to college and shared their experiences with you?
Yeah, actually, I have a half sister.
Oh, okay.
And she went to Ohio State University. So having her go away was definitely an experience, but she is currently struggling with her faith. Okay. She goes back and forth between, what she believes. And honestly, that's been an encouraging process for me as well, because I've had the opportunity to help guide her. Even though, she's my older sister and she's guiding me, I had that opportunity to guide her in her faith. Mm-hmm. And regardless of if she's struggling, she's had those opportunities to reach out to other people, because Ohio State is such a huge university. There are plenty of options. And I feel like regardless of where you go to school, people are going to have options. You just really have to look out for them.
Okay. Did she go to a Christian high school?
No, she went to just a private school in Powhatan, Virginia, and she obviously didn't have the same opportunities to encounter Christ as I have, but my parents are both very Christian, mm-hmm. So she has the same background, but she's been struggling with her faith, just because of hardships in life, but I know that in my heart that God will bring her to where He needs her to be in His plan.
Well, and she's blessed to have you in her life, even though you're younger. But the youth are very wise. I learn a lot from the younger people. Anyway, we are going to take a break right now, and we will be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to Girl Talk. If you are just tuning in now, we are talking about transitioning from a Christian school to colleges. I have 3 seniors with me here who have been in a Christian school for most of their academic years, and they're getting ready to apply to college. Girls, I just want to tell you that I've had 2 daughters also go through Trinity, and then they went to James Madison University in Virginia, and I was not blind and deaf to what the college scene is like, being that I went through college here too. And there was a temptation to attend parties, and I don't want to go into what my girls have done, but they did, attend some of these parties because there's a curiosity. My younger daughter was very honest and said she was curious. She's been in a Christian school all her life, but she wanted to see what else is out there. How do you feel about that? And do you think, and you can be very honest, because parents are very concerned. I've had a lot of parents approach me recently because their children have gone off to college and they want to pray for them, they want to counsel them, they want to guide them. So I would have been very ignorant if I did not think that my daughters were going to go to these parties and they were going to test the waters a little bit. And I want you to be honest, because I think our listeners need to hear the truth, and it's okay, because I think this is what this show is all about, is being open and honest and sharing with our audience and our viewers what you're really faced with. So, Zoe, you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. So throughout my life, I've had a lot of pressure to be very academically focused. Growing up in Northern Virginia, there's this huge pressure to get straight A's all the time. You need to have perfect grades. So part of me is thinking, if I go to college, I'm going to learn, and I'm not going to parties. But part of me is interested in seeing, what is that like? Is it so bad to go to a party? So I think part of what would be my biggest pressure there is trying to maintain a social life, but also being conscientious of I'm at school to learn. Like I need to be focused and driven to achieve my goal because, you know, my parents are putting me through this program so that I can make a difference and I don't, you know, just trying to find that balance.
Okay. Christy?
I think parents definitely influence their kids as they grow up, and they do their best with teaching them what's right and what's wrong. And I think that when kids go off to college, the most that a parent can do is just trust that what they've taught them is going to take effect into college, and that their kids will make the right decisions. And I think that it's important to definitely keep in touch with your faith, because I think if you test the waters, it's really easy to fall in too deep. Personally, I think that obviously most parties involve like a lot of drinking and probably not good things, but I think it's okay if you go with a group of friends. You don't exactly have to do all these bad things that are like come with like the idea of parties in college, but just like seeing what it's like, I think is okay, but also making sure that you're not falling into that and it doesn't become the norm. It's just an occasional thing. But yeah, definitely what Zoe said, that college should be focused on academics, because you're not paying and going to live on campus just for the sake of partying.
Yeah, I agree with Christy. I'd say like I'm a very like cautionary, like I'm super, super cautious about everything that I'm doing. I like to think that I'm a pretty mature person. And so I always think about the consequences of what I'm doing. And like, even when my friends are driving, like I'm the one that's like the mom, like always lowering the volume, making sure that we're all safe. And so like, for me, like if I do end up going to parties, which I mean, I think I would, just because I do want to test the waters. I do want to know it's like I know I won't do anything like any illegal drinking or anything else like that. Like I know I'm just going to be there just to make sure that my friends are okay and they get like to their dorms back safely. Like I know I'm not that type of person to just like go and like party, but I'm definitely the person that's like the motherly person, I guess, to take care of everyone, make sure that they're safe and that they're doing something that they won't regret.
Well, let me just give you a scenario to think about, and I'd love to hear your feedback about it. But let's say either you or someone close to you, your sister, your friend, you know, does go to a party, and sometimes the peer pressure is overwhelming, and, you know, either you or that person drank too much, or whatever, just exposed yourself too much and fell really hard, okay? And it's hard to come back from that. It's very, very hard to come back from that. But let's just discuss this in, like, what would the outcome be for you? Would you be able to circle back with your parents and be honest and tell them, hey, listen, I went to a party, I drank too much, I got really drunk, I'm hungover, I'm not feeling well, I'm sorry I did this, I don't see myself doing it again, or I might do it again? Or would you want to just cover it up like it never happened, pretend it never happened, look the other way, and then just be cautious the next time? So I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
I think what you said is that obviously parents are not oblivious to what goes on in college. And I think having that transparency with your parents and being open about it, they know that you're going to make mistakes. You can't be perfect. And everyone falls and has those moments. And so I think being honest with them and saying, yes, like I did do this, but I learned my mistake and I don't want to do that again, I think is better than just trying to hide it, because yeah, I think it'll help you more in the future when those situations come up again. So.
And do you feel like how would your parents react to that?
Obviously, I don't think my parents would be delighted by the fact that I would have done that. But I do think they would appreciate the honesty more than trying to hide it. And your parents always know. That's what I've learned. They always know.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. What about you, Zoe?
So I definitely would err on the side of honesty with my parents. My parents are very open with that. We have a history of alcoholism in my family. And so the idea that I could be putting myself in that position is terrifying. So I definitely would have to be accountable to my parents because it's their job to protect me. Even though I've reached that level of maturity, I'm independent, I'm going to be living on my own. I recognize that they're still my parents, regardless. I'm always going to be their little girl. And so I would much rather be honest and say, hey, I really messed up last night. But I recognize my mistake. And, if you drink that much, you probably aren't going to have the best, recognition of like what kind of danger you're in. And so being with someone who's been in that position and saying, hey, what should I do? That's going to set you up for success in the future and steering you away from those things that would prevent you from making good, godly decisions.
Yeah, definitely having a history of alcoholism, I could see why you would err on the side of being very cautious. Fareed, I'm going to challenge you a little bit more. You have a sister in college.
Yes.
And you're very close to her. And let's say things get out of control for your sister, and she only confides in you. And she says, I got drunk, I was hungover, I made some bad decisions, but I promise it will not happen again. But I just need to tell someone who I know will love me through this. But it happens again and again. And your parents have no idea because she's too scared to go to your parents about it. What would you do in that situation?
I mean, if it keeps happening again, like I feel this is kind of hard because like I would never want to betray the trust of my sister, but at the same time I don't want her to fall. And so I think for me, I put on like house arrest for a little bit, and then if it really just does not get better, like then I confront my parents about it. But actually I think I might go to my aunt first because I know my sister and my aunt are really, really close, and my aunt is just like a motherly figure, but also like almost like a sister at the same time. And so I think for me to confront her and then confront my parents, I think that would be the best thing to do at that situation, in that situation.
I love what Farida just said, and I just want to remind, if any parents are watching this, she mentioned that she would go to her aunt, who is someone that her parents obviously trust and love, and her sister does too, because sometimes parents can't be the all in all that children need because parents are too involved or too scared or too worried. But the fact that Farida already knows that there's another adult who is part of the family that can be trustworthy, that's another option for parents too, just so that your children have other people in their lives whom they love and they trust and they can confide in. And I think that that's so important. And that's what builds community. And that's what builds accountability. So I love that though I challenged Farida, she was able to come back with a very smart, wise answer. So girls, being in a Christian school most of your life, would you send your children to a Christian school?
I've definitely thought about it before. It's definitely, I think, really hard because I have attended Trinity Christian School for the past 12 years, so I've never experienced public school before. And obviously college is going to be different, but I think the friends that I've made because of Trinity and just the community, I think I would send my kids to Christian school because having friends that you can confide in and talk to about your faith and have, like me and my friends, we have deep conversations, and we obviously are not going to agree on everything, but they push you to further your relationship with God. And I don't think that is easy to find in a public school. So I think I would send my kids to a Christian school.
Definitely. I would absolutely spend the extra money to send my kids to a private Christian school. If I can save them from the fall that I had to experience and I can already set them up in that community, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Good, okay.
For me, I would do kind of what my parents did. So from the ages, like from when I first started school to about the age of 10, I used to go to a private school. It wasn't Christian, but we did take Christian classes. Like they would split up the religions, and so the Christians would take Christian class. But I think for me, after that, and then going to a public school, and then going to a private Christian school, I think that was probably the healthiest thing that could have happened to me because like in my very, very old school, like my first school, I kind of had that experience of like learning the basics of the faith and then it was going to public school where like it's crazy, and like you see a stranger every day because the school is so big, and so I kind of liked having that too, just to experience what it was like to not have, I guess, the comfort of having everyone around you be Christian and knowing how to deal with that, and then putting them in, I guess, a private Christian school. I think the growth there, like, so you're not lost at public school, you go straight into an area where you can feel safe, and then you can continue your learning through a Christian perspective, and then you can go to college where you won't be like shocked at what people do and like how people talk even, and just like the scandals that we think are, like, we wouldn't see in a Christian school, but like it's real and it does happen.
Yeah, so you want to give them options and you want to give them
Yeah.
a healthy balance to experience both. So that's really good. So my last question is, obviously college classes they can range from 200 kids to 300 kids in a class. The professors are not all Christians and are not of the same mind as you, and some of them are atheists. How do you think you have enough boldness to stand up to a professor in the front of a class when he goes up against the Christian faith?
To be honest, I don't, like, if anyone's seen the movie like God's Not Dead,
Yes.
I personally don't know if I would have the courage to do that, especially if the professor is like super opinionated. Like, it's hard to do that, and then like what if he just humiliates you in front of the entire class? And especially like going into like my freshman year of college, like I don't know if I would have that kind of courage to do that. I think if I like know more about the professor first, instead of it just being like the first class and he says like God is dead, and me being like, actually, like, instead of doing that, I feel like I would try to do it on a more like one-on-one basis and not in front of the whole class.
Okay.
But I mean, I would hope that I would have that courage, but I just, like, I don't know if I'm at that stage yet.
No, that's a very honest answer.
I definitely agree with Farida that I do not think I would be comfortable doing it in front of an entire class, since those freshman lectures are huge. I think it would be much easier and honestly much more loving to do it on a one-on-one basis, because then if they're willing to hear me, then I can meet them where they are, the same way that God meets us where we are, and I can talk to them about their concerns and, you know, what their walk with Christ looks like, because it's very difficult for a non-believer to be vulnerable. And having someone who's especially a superior, a teacher, a professor, making them in a vulnerable position, it's going to be a much more ugly confrontation. So I definitely much prefer a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, I agree with Zoe. I think it's important to stand up for your faith, but I also think it depends on the context of the situation. I wouldn't necessarily like speak out in front of the whole class, but I think talking one-on-one, seeing his point of view and seeing faults in them, but also being open for discussion about it, because a lot of the time when Christians are so like, I'm not going to hear your perspective, that kind of turns people away, because then they're like, well, I don't really want to share anything with you. And I think being open to discussion about it but still standing firm in your faith is really important. So
What about if your roommate, I don't know how you're going to choose your roommates, but what if you are rooming with someone who doesn't share the same faith you share? And let's say this girl brings a boy to the room and gets busy. How are you going to deal with that?
I mean, I'm very much like kind of like a control freak. It's bad, but like I know I would set boundaries with my roommate no matter what religion they are, if they're atheists or they're Muslim or anything like that. Like, I am setting boundaries and they need to be respected for me, at least. Like, that's how I feel. Not that I would be like unfair with the rules, but like I just need to have those boundaries. And I know like if like bringing a boy into the room that we're like I don't know, and then something happens, like that's an absolute no-no for me, and I would definitely confront, like if that's my roommate, like we spend every night together, like we need to make sure that we're on the same page. And I feel like when you're forced to be that close to someone, you're kind of forced to have those deep conversations of like, well, why do you not think that God is real? Or like, what happened in your life that led you to believe that? Or like, what do you think like created the world and stuff like that?
That's a great answer. And right now we're going to go ahead and conclude this episode. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great day.